Reddit. Smash the like button and destroy the subscribe button, and you will join our family.
Serious, have you ever been tortured? Tell us your story. In first grade I was just shy of 6, started kindergarten early. My teacher found a textbook that someone had written my name in repeatedly with a crayon. It was clearly the writing of a child. My name written a half dozen times. From top to bottom on the inside back cover. My teacher accused me of doing it. But I had not. The more she accused me, the more I denied. The more I denied, the angrier she became. Soon she was screaming in my face, swearing at me, demanding that I confess. But I refused. We were sitting at the kind of desk where the top opens to reveal a storage area underneath for notebooks, pencils, etc. She told me to get my things out of the desk as I was to go to the principal's office. When I reached inside, she slammed my arms with the desktop. Then asked if I was ready to confess. I refused. So she told me to get my things again. I didn't want to get my arms slammed again. So I refused. She demanded I get my things. And I continued to refuse. She became so angry she grabbed my arm, lifted the desktop, stuck my hand inside and slammed the top again. She repeated this about a dozen times, asking between each slam if I was ready to confess. I never did confess. And she eventually stopped when a number of other kids started crying. I told my parents what happened when I got home from school. There was a big stink at school the next day. I had to tell the story of what happened to a number of people. I never saw the teacher again. It really wasn't me who wrote in the book. When I was really young, over a period of years when I was 5 to 8 years old, my mother used to punish me for wrongdoing by giving me forced enemas. The physical and emotional terror was severe. It happened at least 5 times. The memories are a little hazy. She thought she owned my body. She thought she knew what was best for me. And she justified the act of forcibly inserting the hard plastic tip of the enema machine into my body as I sobbed in shame and horror and helplessness by saying it was good for my health. It hurt. It was incredibly physically unpleasant. But probably unsurprisingly, the thing I took away from it was body shame, or whatever else emotionally abused kids carry into adulthood. I was tied up in a house fire. My former husband was extremely mentally and physically abusive. I was leaving him and he decided that if I was going to leave, we were all going to go. I ended up escaping. I was tied to a chair after he passed out from the flames. He and the dog died and the house was burnt to the ground. The only thing that got me through it was knowing that he was trying to kill me. I was able to seek help properly. I think about it every day. Yes. Kind of. I went through SEER training for the Air Force at Fairchild AFB. For part of the training we spent 3 days in a simulated POW camp, including sleep deprivation and psychological torture. They couldn't physically abuse us, but it was good training. Had a catheter shoved down my penis by a nurse. She realized it wouldn't fit after she kept trying to shove it in. They had to do it again. God. It wasn't necessarily torture, but it was the most pain I have ever experienced. It's pretty much the closest thing to torture I can think of. I guess a kidney stone might be worse. Undefined. 1. Apparently kidney stones are not as painful. Well, at least for some people, thank God. 2. Anyone know why they don't put you to sleep before they put it in? I had anesthesia after they put the catheter in, straight face. 3. For those wondering why I needed it, I was like 12 years old and had pain whenever I peed. Then a few drops of blood would come sometimes. 4. I took it in like a man twice. But I was writhing with pain on the inside. That was probably the most I ever prayed to God in such a short time. Last year my dad was walking from his factory to his gas pump at night, when he was kidnapped by 2 of his employees. They were a married couple. They took him to a warehouse and tortured him, so that he would give them a very large amount of money, roughly I think 500,000 US. My parents were vague about the actual sum. My dad didn't tell me how they tortured him to spare me the pain. But he now has huge scar selection on his chest, back and arms. My mom hinted that they beat him with sticks, among other things. My dad convinced them that he didn't have that kind of money on him and that he needed to go to a bank. So the next day they took him to the bank. He told the bank teller about the kidnappers, who they alerted the bank guards. The kidnappers got away and kept sending my family death threats for months. They knew where we lived. But the police was able to trace the calls and they were arrested. We don't really talk about this incident at my house, and my dad doesn't go on walks much now. Ever since then he's been anxious to move out of the country. We live in Paxiaton to Canada. We are citizens over there. I hope karma pays that couple a visit for your dad soon. I was tortured by an abusive boyfriend when I was 18. He was 27 and totally unstable. He held me hostage at his house for 24 hours, during which time he beat me up, locked me in a cupboard, throttled me until I blacked out, and when I fell asleep through trauma and exhaustion, he threw water on me, which continued until I thought I might drown. His sister turned up unexpectedly after a day and a night, and by then he was also exhausted as he'd been awake the whole. Basically threw him down the stairs, allowing me to run out into the street. How she did it I'll never know, as she was 5'2" and he was over 6 foot and wiry. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want my brother to go to prison. He'd have killed him. This man then stalked me after this for over a year. Eventually I told my brother-in-law, and he and a friend drove up to see him and told him he was not allowed to come within 5 miles of me. They basically gave him a homemade court order. I heard after that he went into therapy. I only just realized that this was torture, really. I haven't been tortured, but I've been beaten up by my parents a lot between the ages of 8 to 16 or around that. I've had my hair pulled and slapped across the face. Have been stripped naked, beaten up and locked out of my own house. I've been pushed down and my mom kicked me in the balls and still didn't give a rat's ass, kept beating me. Daddy has stabbed me with car keys, the most painful beating I remember. There are many more. And I wasn't a dick or did anything so wrong that in return I experienced the aforementioned. The usual slapping and hitting with the belt or shoes were normal. One of the worst I ever read was in the askreddit thread about male rape victims. A girlfriend of the guy tied up for hours and went after him with a vibrator. My dad probably has a story or two. He was wrongly jailed in an Iranian prison for nearly 7 years. I just know some of it, but it's pretty horrible. I was a victim of United States mind control experiments, beginning in the 80s when I was 5 years old. The abuse continues to this day. In the last 8 years of my fight I have been subjected to mutilation of my brain matter, causing pain and stupidity. At 5, it was simulated schizophrenia. At 18 it was mental abuse. At 25 there was physical abuse. The mental health industry is built around mind control. The drugs are designed to be used as poison for this purpose. When I was about 5, my mother bent my fingers back towards my wrist and told me that I better not tell my father what was going on while he was away.
Space Reddit.